Welcome to Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, promoting prosperity and harmony to help you flourish in all areas of life. Join in as we explore the motivations and goals of real estate investors and how their ability to invest abundantly has provided them with the time and freedom to contribute to the world in a creative and thoughtful way. Now please welcome your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with Successful Multifamily Real Estate Investors. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. Our guest today specializes in asset procurement and asset management. As a professional in the real estate and construction fields since 2005, he brings specialized knowledge when finding, underwriting, and management assets. He has spent the recent years as a top professional in the property and casualty side of the residential and commercial insurance industry as an insurance adjuster. He has been investing in real estate since 2010. Welcome, Brandon Abbott.
Thanks, Alan, for having me on the show. Glad to be here.
Let's get to know the Brandon Abbott and find the successful man behind the success story here. So, Brandon, tell us a little bit about how it is that you first got into real estate investing.
Yeah, so my real estate journey, I would have to say, began back in 2008 when I was in the construction industry before the housing market crashed. And I saw the benefit of rental properties at that moment in time. And fast forward to this day, I'll say it started about 6 or 7 years ago, started getting into single family rentals and then recognized the benefit of the economies of scale in multifamily properties, and also a lot of the tax benefits from cost segregation. And so made the transition into multifamily and joined with a great team of partners, and been doing that now as passiveinvesting.com, the company, for just at 3 years now on the multifamily side.
Well, a lot to investigate there, and we'll get back to that. But before we get into that, let's look a little bit more into your personal life and tell us about a formative experience. And that could be anywhere from 1 to 40. So whatever you consider to be formative and whatever you consider to be a real a formative experience that helped you to be the person that you are today.
Sure. Yeah. And you mentioned it, 1 to 40. Formative is my entire life. My methodology, my ideals change, I would say, daily as I am presented with new facts or perspectives. So the one thing I'll say is I never want to stop learning. I think back from childhood. So everybody thinks formative, they think childhood. So I'll go back to that stage. I remember distinctly, and my mom hates when I tell this story because she feels like the bad guy, but I give her the credit for my competitive nature. And at that point in time, this was, I guess I was middle school. I was good academically. I always did well in school. Test, it just was second nature to me. No big deal. My older brother, on the other hand, he was very athletic and he was not as good at school. And so I wanted to start playing sports. And my mom said to me, your brother's better at sports and you're better at academics. What she was saying was, focus on what you're good at. But the way I took that was, he's better than you. And so I said, I'm going to be the best. It was soccer. It was the big sport. I said, I'm going to be the best soccer player that this school's ever seen, and put in the effort. So it's a matter of putting in hours. And that's what I learned from an early age is when you see people that know how to do things that you don't know how to do, it's simply because you haven't learned it yet, and you can learn it. It's literally not rocket science. And if you're willing to put in the work, you will get results. Now, natural talent is another discussion, but you can overcome a lot of that barrier by the hard work. You just may have to work harder than somebody with natural talent. So that was, I think, one of the biggest things in my childhood that I remember in the formative years.
So how did soccer turn out for you?
Oh, great. I played, high school, was all-star 2 years in a row on our high school team, captain of the team. I played a little bit in college, and then I have coached high school soccer as well. And I still love the game. It's an obsession for me. So unfortunately, thankfully, it's back on now, but we have lost soccer coverage for months there. So I'm glad to have it back because it's definitely a part of my life.
Thinking through your life, talk to us about a major fork in your road where the decision you've made has made all of the difference.
There's so many where decisions, Decisions are very impactful because they always have consequences, good or bad, or both. I can say the biggest fork or divergent in my career path would be in 2008. So at a younger age, I was in construction almost my whole life. And again, I was looking at the people around me that knew this or that had the companies. And I was like, okay, they're running it. I should be able to do this. All I have to do is acquire the knowledge. And as an aside to this is there was a couple times where I was without work. This is at a young age. And I had a roommate that he was an electrician and I didn't have any work. So I said, hey, I'll go to work with you. I'll work for free. You teach me how to do it. It's better than me sitting at home on the couch watching TV. And eventually, within a year, I was a manager at that company. From no job to learning a trade to, again, that goes back to putting in the work. But so to come back to the story, I picked up the knowledge in many different trades, framing, electrical, plumbing, grading, different things, and then started my own construction company. I had 3 branches of the business. General contracting. So I was building single family homes, custom single family homes, did a few spec, but mostly custom stuff. Large homes, usually $500,000 or higher. And then we had a grading division or company separate that we used. In other words, my GC company would hire this grading company to do the grading work on our projects, but I would also hire them out to other builders. So I was trying to get the whole money pool there. And the same thing with a framing company. I had 2 framing crews that would work on our GC projects and also could hire out to other builders because it helped me keep tabs on everybody else and make money from just not my pool of business. And that was all great in 2005, 6, 7. And so I was leveraging heavily, growing, buying bulldozers and more trucks and trailers and just ramping everything up until the faucet shut off in 2008. And so that was a big lesson learned in over leveraging. There's always risk, but there's mitigated risk in learning that. But we ended up in 2008, I had 3 children at that time, 3 girls. I have 4 now. Our third was actually on the way when the market crashed, and then cash flow stops, and I have all these big equipment pieces that are sitting there with bills to pay on them. It didn't take long for that to crumble because we had contracts, but nobody could build houses. What good does it do to have contracts? Nobody has money. So my business was shot, and I was younger in the business stage. So only 3 years in. So I didn't have kind of the cushion there. So we ended up, losing everything. We turned everything back in, all the equipment, everything, and just, went to nothing. Moved, let the house go, all our vehicles, all of our equipment, everything to zero, and moved into an apartment, and then went to work. I got a 3rd shift job at a gas station, went to work at UPS. I started a hot dog street vending business just to make ends meet until I could get back up and going again. But that was the biggest kind of hurdle or fork in the road in my life that really taught me the most lessons. And it made me not, some people might take that and say that would make you more materialistic or want to grasp things more. For me, it made me less materialistic because they can be gone in an instant. And so I appreciate what I have, but I'm cautious or more cautious about it. But I'm also willing to take risks a little bit more because I've been in the stage where I've gone to zero, and it's okay. I'm breathing. I still have an able-bodied mind and my strength that I can rely on. And so that was the biggest fork in the road for me.
Well, that was a pretty devastating experience. Of course, you weren't alone in 2008. That was happening to a lot of us in 2008. Talk to us a little bit about how you actually dealt with that emotionally and psychologically, because that was a major setback. It was a huge devastation to you, to your ego, and all of that's significant enough. But you had 3 children you had to look out for and take care of, and a family to concern yourself with. How'd you deal with all of that?
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm a Christian, and so I place a lot of the emphasis, or the reason I was able to come through that well, is that my focus is not on what I own. That's not my That's not the end game. That's not where I'm headed. So when that stuff gets taken away, I also have the mindset that God is in control. And when I look back on it and see all the lessons I learned, I can see that was what his will was for me at the time. Would I have chosen that for myself? No, I certainly wouldn't. But would I redo it, go back and redo it? No, I wouldn't, because it's who I am today. And the biggest thing is I was able to rely on that my needs would be met. That's what God promised me in the Bible. And so I really leaned on that heavily. I will say that was to use the word, ironically, my saving grace through that period, because there's a lot of people that suffered with depression and worse through that stage because they lost everything that they had. And you put all that sweat, equity, and work into a business and marketing, and you really blood, sweat, and tears into something that is your baby, and then it's just wiped out in an instant. But you can either cry over spilt milk, or you can get out a paper towel and start cleaning up the mess and pour yourself another glass. So that's really the mindset that you have to have when you have setbacks. Is it's not the end of the world. You're still breathing. I'm still above ground. And so start back at it and just go back at it and take those lessons and be stronger.
What are, I guess, the 3 top lessons that you really did take from that experience?
Top 3 lessons. Leverage is a great tool. I use it very much so in the multifamily space, but in the correct way. Unbalanced leverage can be devastating. Cash flow was another lesson that I learned. Cash flow is king. So streams of income, don't rely on one source of income, and I always envisioned the delta with all the streams coming together to form the river. And that's really what my goal is financially, is so that I don't get in a situation like that where I'm relying on a single source. And also passive income was another lesson I learned from that, and that not trading time for money, because those things happen. And you can be building businesses, you can be doing that, but as long as you have money coming in from other sources passively, then you're going to be stable. So if you have a hiccup or something, it's okay, because you still have cash flow coming in, which is really, again, and then I guess, so it'd be leverage, cash flow, passive income would be the 3 biggest lessons that I learned from that, from a financial perspective, I would say.
And so that leads into going back to where you started. How did you essentially get to where you are today in the real estate business? And obviously you've taken those 3 lessons and put them into practice. So talk to us a little bit about the processes and the steps that you went through to go from working a 3rd shift at service station to establishing yourself in multifamily syndication. And
Sure.
You did it in a really short period of time there. So talk to us about that whole process.
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely, initially that was a lot of work. I would work 3rd shift at the service station, and then I would go straight from that job to UPS working the morning shift. They have the 4-hour shifts, morning and evening, and you could get benefits from that. So I did that to gain benefits for my family during that time, because I was paying for benefits for my company before, so all that went away. So I was getting income from both of those jobs, but benefits from UPS. And then I would also still go out and try to get some contract work initially, but there's only so many hours in the day, and that was wearing on me quite significantly. I ended up dropping the service station job fairly quickly just because it was unsustainable and the pay was low. But right off the bat, hey, if it's a paycheck, I'm taking it right now. And saying I have is I'll sleep when I'm dead. So at that moment in time, there was no options, mouths to feed. So then it was UPS, and then for a while there, I worked for a hardscape company. So we're doing retaining walls, paving. I was a project manager for them. And I used my building skills to build them a new office, and was able to acquire a lump of cash through that project. I used that to start a hot dog street vending business, which people look at me funny when I say that. I'm from Rochester area, New York. I'm not from Rochester, but from that area. And the big thing there is Weigel's hot dogs. It's a huge cult following. And a buddy of mine was living in Greenville, South Carolina, where I was at the time. He was also from that area, and he had brought some back from New York. And we were sitting in his house. We both worked for the same hardscape company. And we were grilled up some of these hot dogs, and I was like, you know what? These things are so good. And they're not like your normal hot dog. These are like deli style with the skin on them, and they pop open when you grill them. It was really good marketing for me. So I was like, I can make a business out of this. So I took the lump of money that I made from building the office of the hardscape company and went out and bought a hot dog cart, one of those big stainless steel things, street vendor, did a bunch of research and found out a bunch about it and got a contract at a car wash station. It's a full service car wash where people are sitting and waiting for their cars to be detailed. So they had a captive audience sitting right there, and all the workers, they had probably about 30 or so employees that get cash tips, and they would come and buy hot dogs all day long. And the customers sitting there, I sold sodas and hot dogs and chips and stuff like that. So that was my first contract. That was in Greenville, South Carolina. And then I went to a local university and met with their head of vending and got a contract to do all of their sports events because they didn't have anything like that. They thought it would add a little bit of flair. So it's more like you've got the people in the stands yelling out and that sort of thing. So I would bring the street cart. It was a tow behind. I'd bring it out to the stadium, set up down there, and then I would use the student labor for helping me during that time. And we would run all their games, all of their events, basketball, soccer, everything for them, and some special events. And so that was a pretty big contract. We would, and then they, on that same university, they had a t-ball league that would use the fields on Saturday. So we would come out and set up there, and we added fried dough to the mix. So I bought a funnel cake and fried dough machine and would do that as well, and then added some things. So anyways, it started to grow, and then I got it to become passive. I hired some people to run that for me. So I'm doing it all the time because I'm still working at UPS at the same time. I'm not working at the hardscape company anymore. And so that's working passively. At UPS, they had an option where if you were in management, they would pay for a 4-year degree. And so I was like, I'll go ahead and move to management, from an employee to management, just so I can get the benefit of the education that they were going to be providing, because I did not have a 4-year degree at the time. And so my mindset was, I got stuck on a economically driven industry in the single family building that's very economically driven. So my mindset was, okay, I'll be in management. That's a good career path at UPS. I can also get a free education, but I was going to get the education in like nursing so I could go in that route if I wanted to. And then at the same time, I was getting my license for insurance adjusting. And my mindset was whichever one opens up first, that's the one I'm going to go down. But I had 3 options of career paths. And again, I'm not tied to anything. I'm flexible in that. I'm not, one of those guys, that's not what I do. I can make money at. And so what ended up happening is I was able to get a job soon after getting my insurance adjusting license. And so I ended up quitting UPS and going full-time as an insurance adjuster. I did that for 8 years, and that was a big bump in the income for me. I ended up closing down the hot dog business. I ran that for 2 years, and it did well for me. Fast forward 8 years, gained a lot more knowledge on estimating and technology, drone technology through the insurance adjusting. Doing that, had a friend of mine, Dan Hanford, who's my business partner now, asked me if I wanted to fly to New York for the day. He was chartering a jet and said, hey, you want to come with us and we'll go to New York, spend the day, have dinner and fly back. We'll drop the kids off at school. We'll have a babysitter pick them up. And our kids went to the same school. And so on that flight, we were talking, he was telling me how he was wanting to get into multifamily investing because he has medical practices in South Carolina and he was looking for ways to soften the tax burden, and multifamily was a good way to do that. So he's telling me about cash flow. He's telling me about tax advantages, cost segregation and depreciation, accelerated depreciation, all this. And the light bulbs are just going off in my head. I'm like, where's this been all my life? This makes total sense to me. I'm all in. So I got back from that trip, downloaded, 10 or 12 books. When I say download, I read them or did Audible because I was still doing insurance adjusting, which was a lot of driving to the next claim, to the next claim, to the next claim. So I had a lot of windshield time. So I would just burn through, put it on double speed, Audible, burn through as many books as possible, learning about the multifamily space. I came back around a couple months after that trip talked to Dan and said, let's do something together. Let's partner up. And we did. And I'm a burn the ships type of person. If you don't know that story, it's like the general going to invade, and he was up against a bigger foe. And to motivate his troops, when they arrived on the shore, he burned all the ships. So there's no retreat, in other words. So it's all or nothing type mentality. And that's definitely one of my mentalities. So I quit the insurance adjusting right off, almost immediately getting into the multifamily, even though I did not have any income from multifamily at the time, but I wanted to focus 100% on that. And we also added another business partner at that time, and we started purchasing assets. And now we're close to 2,500 doors in multifamily and 275 million portfolio. A nice little warm and fuzzy part of the story is the first apartment complex that we purchased as a company was directly across the street from the car wash where I had my first contract with the hot dog stand. Fast forward all the way down, and you can look across the street and see where that journey started, and now where the new journey has begun. So there's definitely a lot learned along the road, but it's a great trip.
Yeah, that was a fortuitous trip there with your friend there. And listening to this, just putting all the pieces together, it sounds to me like there was connection there. There was the relationship there. There was the acquisition of knowledge and reading all of the various different books there. And so connections and knowledge, that's good. And then there was also, you have the personal drive and determination to do this. Those are nice. Those are three nice components and three nice building blocks, but there's something missing there. What's the connecting piece there that actually pulled all of that together so that it all worked out for you?
I think the biggest thing that I look at when people that understand business and, let's just say, for instance, the multifamily space, that want to get into it and understand it but aren't successful, is they don't pull the trigger. Action is the key to success. Like, ideas don't make money, action makes money. I don't know how many times I've had a good idea and then later on down the road I was like, man, I wish I had done something with that because it's made millions now. But it was just an idea. And there's definitely a risk factor, and getting uncomfortable. Quitting my adjusting job while not yet having guaranteed income from multifamily was a huge step. That was a conversation that my wife and I had multiple times, and leading her down that path and making her, she was skeptical at first of the whole industry. She's like, God, it sounds like a pie in the sky type thing, but taking action is number one. Don't overanalyze it. One thing that my business partner will say is version 1 is better than version none. So don't sit there all day trying to get the perfect first release. Get a first release and then tweak it from there. You're going to make mistakes, and you learn way more from mistakes than you do from successes. I guarantee you that, because success makes you soft and failure makes you tough. And without resistance, there is no growth. It's a basic sports working out. If you're not lifting weights, you're not getting stronger. And so if you don't have diversity, you won't grow stronger. Don't be afraid and take action. It's the way to get ahead.
Well, Brandon, it's been a fascinating conversation, and what a journey you've taken us on today. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our time here. Before we go, just tell folks how they can connect with you.
Yeah, definitely. You can email me at Brandon, BRANDON, @passiveinvesting.com. You can visit our website, passiveinvesting.com. You can see our portfolio, and if you're interested in investing, you can do it that way. And would love to connect with you. We like to provide knowledge. We like to return the favor and give knowledge that we've gained. So if you have any questions for me, feel free to email me. I will respond to you, but I'd love to hear from you.
Great, Brandon. I appreciate you being on the show today and have really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for being on the show, Brandon.
Alan, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on Creekside Chats with Successful Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. For more information, as well as access to our free ebook on enhancing your well-being through real estate investing, be sure to connect with us at steedtalker.com. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine and enhance the humane treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. Connect with us at steedtalker.com.